I remember my first trip to the Chain Islands. It was in the summertime, and I found myself surrounded by 300 or 400 Heermans gulls, which I thought, whoa, this is amazing. There is more than one or two here. I remember it was a very warm day and beautiful sun, beautiful water. And there's possibly 2,000 glaucous wing gulls nesting there in the summertime. My name is Jacques Sirois. I am one of the caretakers of the Chain Islets, which you can see behind me there, and also caretaker for Victoria Harbour Migratory Bird Sanctuary. All the waters behind me are part of this historic bird sanctuary created in 1923. And traditionally, the Chain Islets is where the Songhees, First Nations, the original inhabitants of this area, they would go into the gull colony every year and harvest eggs. So the Chain Islets has always been of great importance here locally for indigenous people originally, and now for bird watchers and the conservation community. The big story for me, it seems a little silly to say, but it's a story of nature in the city. We are not here in the middle of the central coast of British Columbia. We are right next to the capital city, and we have important areas for wildlife basically in the city. And to me, it has enormous value, simply because nature makes cities better. It makes city dwellers happier and healthier. So we've got the rock sandpipers right here. We've got the marble merlets right here. We've got the ancient merlets right here. We've got all kinds of rare plants on these islands, like the purple sanicle and the bearded owl clover. So these sites have high conservation value. They support several species at risk as well. One thing that I find is lacking at present, there is no signage explaining what we have offshore. So there is a huge lack of knowledge locally on what these places, what are their names. People don't know the names, what are these places are all about. So it would be nice to have more signage or even a flyer or two. So this is, by the way, one thing that I see now is increased human disturbance. Where you used to see 1 or 2 or 3 paddle boarders, now we see 10, 20 or 30. And they visit our islands quite a bit. They don't often trespass, but they paddle around and get very close to the wildlife. So we've seen increased disturbance by humans for sure.
Today we went out with a number of volunteers and caretakers, as well as a representative from the Songhees Nation, to do some bird surveys on the Chain Islands. The Chain Islands here behind me are a globally recognized site for their glaucous wing gull populations, as well as the cormorants that nest there in the summer. Recently we've been doing work to try and prove just how significant they are to Brandt's cormorant specifically. And so we went out, had volunteers on every side of the boat to count as many birds as we could find, and we're super successful with about just over 1,200 Brandt's cormorant in the Chain Islands, the Discovery Islands, and some of the surrounding islands in the area. If we want to understand how bird populations are using an area, we need to understand how many are using that area. And so to do that, we need to try and understand what is the total number of, let's say, Brandt's cormorant that are on the Chain Islands. Very few people go out with the intent to figure that out, and so for us, the things we want to make sure are we covering the full area? Are we making sure not to double count birds? Are we making sure to go to every area that we think that species might be using? We're working to recognize the site as a key biodiversity area, both for the number of glaucous wing gulls that nest there in the summer, the huge numbers of black oyster catcher which rest there during the winter, and the large numbers of Brandt's and pelagic cormorant that use it throughout the year. Working with First Nations in bird conservation is not only necessary, it is mandatory. Many of the nations we work with are literally the only way we can safely get to the sites that we study, but to be with a local who knows, oh, actually, On a low tide or a strong ebb flow, that's where we're going to be able to find all the surf scoters at this spot, or that's when the black oyster catchers are going to be congregating on this islet. So it helps you refine the places you look, it helps you refine the questions you ask, and on an ethical point of view, it cannot be done without that partnership. When we go out and work with the local communities whose decisions affect those species, we integrate the resource decision making made by those communities into the process of understanding how those populations are doing. I can love gloxywing gulls as much as anyone's ever loved a bird. It's not going to do a lot for gloxywing gull. If you work with the First Nation who is in charge and who has been in charge of stewarding those islands, removing those invasive species, protecting those lands and waters since time immemorial, you have gained the strongest ally you can possibly have in preserving those habitats and populations. Birds are the greatest opportunity we have to work together in Canada, across Canada, beyond.